Good afternoon. I'm Dan Summers. I'm Director of Collier County's Bureau of Emergency Services and Emergency Management. We're talking to you this afternoon from the Emergency Operations Center, and we wanted to take a minute to update you on the very vigorous activity that's going on here in the Collier County Emergency Operations Center. First of all, let's talk about utilities. Florida Power and Light and Lee Co-op. We have representatives here. They have over 1,000 personnel in Collier County working on repair and restoration. We know a lot of communities received power overnight and during the day. What's going on now is that they're getting into the neighborhoods, so there might be smaller incremental numbers of utility restorations coming up as they're working on secondary and tertiary lines. Let me remind you, and we went through this during Irma, that as that utility system and this power comes up, there might be some interruptions after you get power, and that's kind of normal. They're doing some balancing on the power on the grid and from the substations. And in some cases, some lines may energize, and there might be some problems that come up downrange. So be patient, but the power is coming and the crews are here. Remember that if you see a down power line, immediately report it. Treat any down power line as if it's energized. These lines that could be energized, if you make contact with them, will kill you. So stay clear. Keep the kids clear of any energized lines. We're aggressively working on our wastewater system. We still have more generators coming in to support these lift station sites. As commercial power comes up, we'll get more of these lift stations operated, and we have vacuum trucks and pumper trucks going to various locations. But please, we ask you to conserve wastewater. Don't immediately start doing washing if you need to. Try to avoid stressing the wastewater system, especially if your neighborhood is without power, while we work to get these wastewater systems managed and back to pre-disaster condition. We have an enormous army of debris removal teams getting ready to mobilize. And remember, we've talked about today separating your vegetative debris, your construction demolition debris, furniture, and of course the regular household pickup. So listen to those instructions carefully. We have a lot of crews coming, and we ask you to be patient as they work along the roadside. We ask you to be sure and give them plenty of room to work. We have consolidated our shelter operations to one shelter. We're trying to maintain a little bit of capacity there in the unlikely event that Lee or Charlotte County needs further assistance in sheltering. We continue to work closely with my colleagues and partners in Lee and Charlotte County, and we know that they have an unbelievable road ahead of them with response and recovery, and we stand ready to help them. And in some cases, we have yielded some resources from Collier County to go, some resources from FEMA and the state to go to Lee County. Cellular towers, let me explain. All the cellular towers and the network operators we have spoken to are in good shape. But what happens with your cell phone call is that your cell phone call goes back through a landline. And a landline might be a fiber optic cable underground. It could be copper. It's going to various CenturyLink and Lumen switches and carriers. And there are situations along the landline part of this, or what may be buried, where there have been cable breaks or service interruptions on the landline part of this call. So they're working very closely with all of their partners and carriers to make sure that these lines remain intact and keep your cell phone call, your data call, and your text moving forward. We're making really good progress on traffic signals. But again, let me caution you, a couple of things can happen with this. You might have a series of intersections that the signals are working, and then suddenly the next intersection may not be working. The signal may not be working. We're putting generators there, or in some cases we have to reconstruct that. So again, travel slow, be cautious, pay very close attention in these intersections so we don't have an accident. If an intersection is not functioning, remember to treat that as a four-way stop. So again, please be careful, take your time. We also want to remind you that our communities all of our communities are being served to the best of our ability. We have a good stockpile of things like bottled water and shelf-stable meals going into these areas. No doubt they had some interruption from the I-75 closure that occurred late last night, but we are working to make sure that the essential food and water and mobile canteen services are being deployed in that area. And we have a lot of agencies coming in that are specially trained in disaster meal service that are coming in to support these communities. Donated goods. We all have that desire to give during times of a disaster, and that's what makes Collier County such a great place to live. But we want to remind you that please do not send any unsolicited donated goods. We don't need any secondhand furniture or supplies. We have a lot of communities receiving those donations, and they're simply clogging up the emergency response and slowing down the recovery. The best way to help is to make a financial contribution, and that financial contribution through our designated portal is the Community Foundation of Collier County. That's money stays local. That money is immediately distributed to our nonprofit organizations, our human service organizations here in Collier County, and they have the ability to get some emergency unmet needs funding to those that are most vulnerable. So again, please, no donated goods. We will work with those individuals and organizations that have specified donated goods set up for disaster operations. Otherwise, cash is really king, and that's what really helps out our community. And we get that money circulating locally. We give these folks the opportunity to get exactly what they need, and it helps us get back to pre-disaster conditions. Finally, we just want to ask you to be patient, help your neighbor, take that safety pause, look around and make sure that you're not putting yourself in harm's way, you're not taxing yourself personally, and continue to support your neighbor. And we too are going to continue to support our neighbors in Lee and Charlotte County. Thank you again. This is the latest that we have from the Collier County Emergency Operations Center. Stay safe.